Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday evening. For the next half hour, we've got a couple of experts assembled ready to talk about a topic that we believe is going to be of interest to you, civil rights. But we'd love to have you join the conversation. At the bottom of the screen, you see ways you can join our conversation, plus a reminder. There's an attorney standing by right now to talk with you. So the opportunity for you to get some free legal advice and some good legal advice at that, if you'll just pick up the phone and give them a call all throughout the program. They are standing by live, leading our conversation, as he often does, from the firm of Hollis, Wright. Josh Wright, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Hope you had another great week.
I did. Thank you, sir.
You know, David, we're going to be talking about civil rights, and we've talked about civil rights before. It's obviously a pretty impactful topic in today's society. It seems like every week on television and in the news, you see something related to a civil right related issue that caused somebody's injury or death. There are 1,000 people that are killed by police officers in shootings per year. That doesn't make all police officers bad. Just shows how prevalent the issue of police and guns and crime is. We're going to be talking a lot about civil rights and kind of what your rights are in circumstances where you found yourself in this unfortunate circumstance. So we've got Victor Revill from the Revill law firm here who's going to be talking about it. He's an expert in this area, handles civil rights cases. And you know, Victor, it honestly is not a simple topic. I mean, for a lawyer that goes to law school that learns about civil law and constitutional law, you would think it would be easy to jump in and become a civil rights lawyer. Truth be told, that's really not accurate. It's a very complicated area of the law, dealing with the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and kind of what you have to do to protect yourself. Kind of start us out here, because I'll be honest with you, I read some of these statistics before we kind of started the show, and some of these statistics make me uncomfortable knowing what goes on in society. I mean, they just really do. How did you get involved in this area of the law to start with and become kind of an expert in the civil rights area?
Well, civil rights is something I've always been interested in. I always want to know what my rights are. So when we talk about civil rights, we're talking about, you know, all those things in our Bill of Rights, other amendments, other laws. You know, it's our freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, First Amendment, our right to bear arms, Second Amendment, right against a warrantless search and Fourth Amendment, freedom from self-incrimination, Fifth Amendment, right to attorney, Sixth Amendment, freedom against cruel and unusual punishment, our Eighth Amendment, freedom against involuntary servitude, 13th Amendment, due process, 14th Amendment, right to vote, 15th, 19th Amendment, you know, all these privacy rights. It's just all these rights.
He's got it, baby.
all these rights. And so, you know, one thing when I went to law school, one of the things, the biggest thing for me was just learning what my rights are. I feel like, you know, even if I wasn't going to practice law, it was important to me to know what my rights are. And so when I got into the practice of law, I started off doing criminal defense. And in doing criminal defense, you hear things. So your clients, they talk to you about certain things that's going on, and it's kind of a natural progression to continue to advocate on behalf of these people that are going through certain things, and certain things are happening to them. And it was just a natural for me to get involved in fighting for their rights.
So when we talk in terms of the concept of civil rights, I know you've listed a lot of the constitutional amendments where people are protected. In general, how do you kind of define civil rights as a practice group, if you will?
It's just those rights that we hold dear to us as Americans. It's those rights that if we feel like if we didn't have these rights, if we weren't clothed in these types of these rights, then we'll feel like we didn't have any. It's all those things that we hold dear. But it's those things it's those guarantees that our government has given us. It's those promises that the government says, hey, these are your rights, and we're going to uphold them. And that's pretty much what it is. You know?
Now, there's an interplay, and I see this in my practice a lot. There's an interplay between, for example, state law violations. For example, if a correctional officer or a police officer that is a state agent causes some wrong and the federal rights that you're protected by, like 1983. Is there oftentimes, in the cases you're handling, an interplay where you've got to evaluate both the state implications as well as the federal implications and advise a client?
Absolutely. So a lot of times you'll have a violation on the state law claim, but it's also a civil rights violation. So you mentioned 1983 claims, those 42 U.S.C. 1983 civil rights actions. So that code basically is the vehicle to get in federal court. You'll take all these state law claims with you when you go to federal court and you sue someone in federal court for these civil rights violations, and it's kind of an interplay, like excessive force. You would use that state law claim for excessive force, but you will also use 1983, which is basically a state actor that is acting under the color of law and violating one of the person's liberties, or life, liberty, or property. And so it'll be an interplay. It'll be a little bit of both.
Okay. And do you see these type cases in a certain area more than others? For example, generally, are you dealing with a state actor like a police officer or some other form of a state agent, or can it be outside that realm where there's a civil protection that someone still has?
It definitely can be outside that realm. Most times with my firm, we will see it with someone in law enforcement. I've represented a lot of people that were either in police custody and the officer may have done something wrong, or I have a case right now where an officer forced my client to engage in sexual relations to keep her from getting charged. I have cases where excessive force just on the street, or I've had cases where an officer shot one of my clients, and we felt like that should not have happened. But also in the correctional facility, I have a case where it was a young lady that was raped several times. There's been cases where in the jail or in prison where there was a client of mine that was beat extremely badly, or I have a case where there's also a client that got into an incident with another inmate and needed medical attention, and that medical attention wasn't given because these officers that are in the jail, they have a duty for the overall well-being of these inmates, these people that's either charged with crimes or convicted.
And I know you probably, like our practice, when individuals come to us and say, this individual, this officer did wrong, a lot of times we are evaluating on the totality of the circumstances, the facts, and a lot of times the answer is, look, this is not a civil rights violation.
That's right.
You contributed to your own circumstance here,
That's
and
right.
the law enforcement officer acted reasonably. And I know that's part of what you do for a living. You evaluate those cases on their facts to determine whether or not it's a fit for a civil rights violation, but a lot of times, sometimes it's not a civil rights
That's
violation.
exactly right. So we get a lot of calls. There are a lot of people that think that something is a civil rights violation is not. For instance, someone is arrested for a crime they're not guilty of. They're actually innocent of it. Mm-hmm. And some people feel that, hey, just because I got arrested for this and I'm innocent of it, right, that this is a wrongful arrest. And it's just not the case. Gotcha. You kind of have to get into the mindset of that officer at that time, and look at his reasonable belief. And did he have enough probable cause, which is a special term, to arrest this person? But it's that totality of the circumstances, like you mentioned earlier.
One of the things, I know we're getting ready to go to break here. We'll go to our first break, but I do want, when we come back, to be able to talk about, and I know Victor can do a good job of this, kind of what your rights are at a stop, what obligations you have to provide information to the police officers, what you don't have to do, what's appropriate, what's not. Let's talk about that when we come back, because I think those are questions people oftentimes have.
Absolutely. Look forward to that as we step aside our first break of the evening. As we do so, the information at the bottom of your screen, how you can join our conversation. This conversation and discussion, I'm sure, has sparked some questions, and you get those into us. Also, find the firm on Facebook as well as Twitter. Facebook is just search Hollis Wright, and on Twitter it is Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. More of The Attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Welcome back in to The Attorneys talking about civil rights. Would love to have you join our conversation. That information there at the bottom of your screen. As we went to break talking about rights and obligations, kind of breaking this subject down, let me ask you, Victor, if you're pulled over by an officer, what are your rights, but also what are your obligations there?
So you get pulled over, say it's a traffic stop. You're pulled over. First thing, go ahead and pull on over. And at that time, you want to put your car in park, you want to let your window down, you want to turn your engine off. And what I tell my clients is, put your hands on the wheel and wait for further instruction. Now, there used to be a time where you would go ahead and pull your license out, go ahead and get your license and registration, car insurance out. This day and time, I tell my clients, don't do that. Once you pull over, you keep your hands on the steering wheel until that officer gets there, because these officers have a hard enough job. Everybody that's in the vehicle and that are pulled over, they don't have the best intentions. Everyone doesn't. And so you don't want to be moving too much in the car. You don't want to be going around, because you don't want to give this officer a thought of something else going on. So you don't want to just sit there and you wait. And then as the officer comes up there, you need to once he asks for your license or asks for your name, give him your license, give him your name. You never want to lie about your name. You never want to lie about your social security number, your date of birth, because that could lead to other possible criminal charges. So you have an obligation to tell them your name. Now, this is the thing. You have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Technically speaking, you could write down your name. You could, because you have that right to remain silent. Right. And let's say if you just refuse to give any information, now this officer got to find out who you are, so you may get taken out to the precinct. Right. But I tell my clients, hey, go ahead and give your information, tell them who you are, and wait for further instruction. Now, people need to know you have a right to refuse consent for the search of your vehicle. The officer may ask, hey, can I search your vehicle? You have a right to say, no, officer, I don't give you my consent. Now, that does not mean that you can prevent this officer from searching your vehicle, because the officer may feel that he has probable cause for this search. You may disagree, but you're not going to win that battle right up the street. You win that battle in the courtroom. Yeah. So you basically follow the officer's instruction. What I tell my clients is this: at the end of the day, bottom line, do what you're told. Try not to cause any problems, but be mindful of your rights.
I think those are great points. It's often interesting to me. I had a client one time ask me years ago, I don't understand why I keep getting pulled over, and I've gotten 3 DUIs. And I thought to myself, well, he has never recognized the concept that they're able to run his tag, assess his entire criminal history before you even arrive there, and see that that person has been convicted of DUI a couple times. Now, you're not supposed to be able to use that to the disadvantage of the person at that stop. However, human nature is, it's done. Your full criminal history is probably on the mind of that officer under certain circumstances. I'm not talking about a random stop on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the middle of a community where there's nothing going on. But if it's at night, they're going to know your criminal history probably before they get to that car. And I think you probably see that too. And that's
Absolutely
why you
right.
see people, you're like, how is it possible that you got DUI one first time? There were so many other opportunities to get away from that. All right, well, that happens. So what happened to the person? How did they get a second and a third and a fourth DUI? It's because they know when they get there what your criminal history is. And so that's something that, I think people don't know. There's a little tidbit of information that you see.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
I mean, that point's a very, very strong point. If you get in the system, you get charged with an offense, it's so hard to get out of it. It's so hard because you get judged. Like you said, human nature. People got charged with a drug offense in the past or a domestic violence or a DUI. And so when this officer looks up their history and looks at their past, human nature dictates they're going to be thinking about that. Yeah. And maybe if they had a prior drug offense or drug charge, it's a higher likelihood that officer is going to want to search that vehicle. Yeah. That's just how it is. It's human nature.
Let's unwrap that a little bit more.
We can take a break.
Okay, let's do that. I tell you what, when we come back, I do want to talk about this. I want to unwrap a little bit more this concept of what circumstances would give an officer probable cause to actually do an inspection of your vehicle versus those things where he wouldn't be able to.
That's good. We'll pick up right there whenever we come back. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up. As we head to break, a reminder, you can find the firm on Facebook. Search the term Hollis Wright. You'll find them on Facebook and on Twitter, Hollis_Wright. Our final break of the evening. Again, an attorney standing by right now to speak with you. Take advantage of that golden opportunity. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Tyler Vale with the law firm of Hollis Wright. As with any industry, it's important in the legal world to hire an attorney that is knowledgeable and has a track record of success. But with so many attorneys out there and so many different types of cases, how does someone decide the right lawyer to hire? In this week's Legal 411, we're answering the question, what should I consider in hiring an attorney? In-state versus out-of-state, big firm or little firm? Recommendations from friends or family, the internet, the phone book, or TV. With so many choices and so much information, it can be an overwhelming task trying to make the right decision. To complicate things, choosing a lawyer is an important and sometimes life-affecting decision and should not be taken lightly. So how do you select an attorney? Do your research. Look the firm up on the internet. Ask friends and family whether they know or have any experience with a specific firm. If you know any local lawyers, ask them about the reputation of the firms you may be considering. Call a local law office and ask if they are handling cases like yours. There's a good chance they can help you. But if they can't, they can always refer you to someone they respect who handles your type of case. And remember, ask questions face to face. Ask about their experience in handling cases like yours. How often someone from their office will be available to you, and what you can expect during the process. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you.
Welcome back into the attorneys. This is the final segment of the show, so if you have a question or a comment, you want to take advantage of the opportunity to speak with an actual attorney who are standing by right now, take advantage of that opportunity. Just a few minutes more remaining. You know, as I sit here as a bystander watching you guys and speaking, we've done a couple hundred shows, so having conversations with a couple of different attorneys from different areas of practice, it always kind of amazes me. You all kind of see the worst in us in many ways. Josh, you guys with personal injury, and Victor, you guys, you know, when it comes to civil rights, how do you guys not lose faith in the system?
Well, I mean, you got to have faith in the system. You gotta hope that at the end of the day, justice prevails. That's what keeps you going. That's why we have the fight, because we want to see justice prevail. If we didn't believe in the system, who would? We as lawyers, we as advocates, if we didn't believe in it, how can anybody else believe in it? So we see the worst of people. I see the worst of clients. I see the worst on the other side of those people that are doing something wrong to hurt them or doing something in violation of their civil rights. Right. And it's hard at times, but never lose faith in the system and hope that at the end of the day, if I do my job right, that I'll be able to get the best outcome for my client.
Yeah, and I think that's a real fair question. What gets me excited about being a lawyer and kind of living in this great country we call the USA is that we have these rules that we are required to follow that allows our society to run in a positive way. And I'll give you two good examples. And I've said it on the show before, and I really believe this. One of the things that makes me very proud to be an American is the fact that we have responsibilities, even with foreign individuals that we have captured, not to torture those individuals. And that to me makes our country truly great, because it would be so easy for us to, in times of war, capture individuals and torture them. And don't get me wrong, I'm all about interrogation when it's necessary to protect people. But we have rules in place where we are willing to even protect those that are not part of us because they have rights too. And that makes me, as a lawyer, exciting. The same thing is true with criminal law in general. We are willing to allow some guilty people here and there to go free with a really high standard in a criminal case in order to ensure that guys that didn't do it the wrong way don't go to jail. And that is what makes our system great. That doesn't mean you're not tough on crime. It doesn't mean you don't believe in the system. It means it's what makes our laws great and why it is awesome to be a lawyer and to work within the rules that we have set, that the Supreme Court promulgates down and that our legislatures promulgate down and Congress promulgates down, that we all have to apply in our daily lives to keep civility in society. And it kind of is what gives me energy as a lawyer to know that we have these rules out there. So that allows me to have faith in the system itself. So hopefully it is encouraging. I keep getting up every day doing this thing. Hey, let's talk for a moment. We kind of went to break and we're talking a little bit about stops. There are certain things that if you're stopped, you are not going to be responsible for providing, for example, the officer the right to evaluate and inspect your car. Is that called a Terry stop? Is that what that's called? Or maybe I've gotten the law wrong, but you tell me.
So Terry is, the court has said that a reasonable articulable suspicion to stop them. So that reasonable articulable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot, all these legalese, and that's just for a stop. So that's the traffic stop. Okay. That's your Terry stop. But to go further, probable cause must be met for that officer to start searching this vehicle. Okay. And so what the court has said is that probable cause is the totality of circumstances. I mean, lawyers, judges, cops, everyday people have a hard time understanding, well, what is probable cause? And nobody can say really what it is. It's something that's more likely than not that something's going on here. Okay, and you got to look at all the factors, the evidence, statements, whatever's going on, everything together in the aggregate to find whether or not probable cause is met. So for an officer to start searching that vehicle, you have to meet probable cause. And sometimes officers get it wrong. And as a result of that, evidence is thrown out of court and inadmissible in court because probable cause wasn't met. In a situation where it was met, then it comes in. And so it's something that usually courts have to deal with.
Yeah. What do you see most often in your practice from a civil rights perspective? Is it on the civil right violation side? Is it on the discrimination side? What do you see the most?
I don't touch the discrimination side. Okay. It's a slippery slope with that, and I'm not interested as much in the discrimination part. I'm interested in just advocating on people's rights. I'm interested when somebody's rights have been violated using the 42 U.S.C. 1983 statute. When somebody's rights have been violated, they've been harmed, and under the color of law that these violations have occurred, that's when I want to get involved. I don't too much care as much. I mean, I care, but I don't care. I'm not as passionate about those discrimination type issues.
I got about 3.5 minutes or so left. I want to get to this question. When can I sue the police for false arrest?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of people think that just because they are arrested and they're innocent, it's a false arrest, and that's just not the case. So it's best to explain it with an example.
Okay.
So if you have two individuals, they get into a little brawl, they're fighting. Officer walks up, he sees it, he doesn't know who started,
Right.
and maybe he arrests both people. Somebody may be innocent, okay? And as the courts go through, one person's case gets dismissed, or they go to trial, gets found not guilty. He's like, hey, I was wrongfully arrested.
Right.
No, there was probable cause there. You know, he doesn't know what's going on, but he sees something going on. He doesn't know who started. That's not a wrongful arrest. Now, contrast that with a situation if someone's arrested for resisting arrest.
Right.
So an officer, he comes up to someone, let's say somebody just walking, and officer walks up to him. This person mouths off, and officer doesn't like it, and the officer grabs his shoulder, and they kind of just pull away, and he arrests him for resisting arrest.
Right.
Well, that may be a wrongful arrest because the law says you have to have a lawful reason for
Right.
the arrest. And if you don't have that lawful reason for arrest, then you can't charge somebody with resisting arrest, and so that may be a wrongful arrest. So you have to kind of look at the reasonable belief of the officer at that time.
Right. Less than 2 minutes remaining. I want to give both of you opportunity for a final thought. Victor, you go first, please.
In the context of civil rights, I think that if we don't protect our rights, if we do not uphold these rights, then they will cease to exist. What protects me, what protects you, protects all of us is these laws that we have, these constitutional amendments that we have. These things are what we are cloaked in.
Right.
This presumption of innocence if a person is charged, this right to remain silent, and not be a witness against themselves. Right. These things are things that we are cloaked in, and it's important, and we have to have them for society to go on.
Absolutely.
Civil rights, you go to a guy like this. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, you can tell how passionate Victor is, and I love it. And that's kind of why I went to law school, because we have people that are really passionate about the areas that they practice in. I'm very passionate in the areas I practice in. I know Victor is in his area. What I'd say is this. If you are involved in a circumstance where you feel like your civil rights may have been negatively impacted, you want to get to somebody.
Right.
Victor's a perfect guy to go to. And if you don't remember Victor's contact information, come to us. We'll get you to Victor.
Yeah.
He'll do a good job.
Great stuff.
Thanks for being on.
Very
glad to
interesting
be here.
conversation. Appreciate it. Thanks to both of you for the time. Thank you for joining us as well as always. We do not take for granted the opportunity that you spend every Sunday evening with us. Thank you so much for it. We do appreciate it as we wrap things up. Information on how you can contact the firm, the Hollis Wright. Would love to hear from you as we wrap things up. Here's how you can get in touch with the firm. Also find them on Facebook as well as Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.